Hello, everyone! As you may have realized, Sunday is kind of my whatever, just throw something at the wall slot, and I've been having a lot of fun with it because it allows me to do things that I've wanted to do for a while but never really had much justification. I mentioned a few times that I do keep a dream journal for some of my weirder dreams, and I thought it would be kind of fun to just sort of read through it. Scrolling through this document, what strikes me as kind of interesting is that some of them are really, really long, those times when I wake up and I feel like a whole detailed lifetime has passed, while others are extremely short, and I think it really gives a nice insight into the state of mind after waking up from different types of dreams. Now, I do write down the year as I record these things, and I'm not even really sure why I started doing that, and not even specific dates, just the year. But I do wonder if you were to analyze some of these, if you could see like trends emerge. Starting, like the very earliest one that I'm going to read is 2012, and as I scroll down, like almost half of the entire document is just tons and tons of these from 2022 and 2023, and I've only recently added one for 2024. So it seems like I'm having these really vivid dreams more often, and I wonder if there's a reason for it. This first one I recorded was actually posted to a forum at the time and is worded as such. I had posted this on another forum, pasting it in from there. This happened in May of this year. Kind of long, so it's coming in parts. Start dream, and I was sitting in some sort of cheap restaurant with family late at night, and my dad mentioned something about going somewhere, then looked at me and said, "Someone's coming for you. Know why?" We got in the car and I fell asleep. What seemed like the next morning, I woke up, but I was on a school bus. It was filled by this weird orange misty light, and the bus was full of people about my age, all wearing Halloween costumes, myself included. We were all sitting really low, almost horizontally in our seats, so we were curling our legs against the seat in front of us. I looked to my left and realized we were three to a seat, making it kind of cramped, and I recognized my friend who asked, "Have you heard of the Antichrist?" I sat up all the way, orange haze still hanging, and the windows seemed to have pure light outside of them. I couldn't see an inch past them. The driver was wearing a rubber mask too, though seemingly one of a normal guy, and was sitting perfectly still. I also noticed everyone was holding a bag of candy. Is it Halloween? I didn't remember. I didn't remember much of anything other than falling asleep in the car after the restaurant. Every few minutes or so, this bus driver would just moan, loudly and angrily. Everyone would immediately throw a handful of candy up to him, and this would quiet him down. This was repeated a few times before the bus came to a stop. He opened the door and let me out. I was standing in front of a house I didn't recognize, a really wealthy-looking one, and immediately understood that it was a dream. I kept repeating lucid dream to myself, to hammer it in not to be scared of anything. But although I knew, I guess I didn't really understand. I went into the house feeling that it was meant to be mine, looking for my computer, hoping I could get some answers. The house was dark and abandoned, and I kept fearing that the driver was following me, though I had no idea why. I wandered around and didn't find anything, so I headed back downstairs and saw a group of kids, maybe a few years younger than me, between 10 and 12, laughing and playing in the den, and now the sun was out. Just to confirm that I was in fact supposed to be here, I asked if it was my house. They looked at me like I was crazy, and one girl answered, yeah? Why, is something wrong?" I figured I wasn't getting anywhere and walked around the back to find that the house had my backyard, but I didn't go in because of these 3 bipedal gorilla-looking things. They're hard to describe. They had patches of blue hair on them, at the elbows and neck, I think. Some large vulture-looking thing about the size of a school desk landed, and one of them picked it up and started beating another with it. The vulture was pretty clearly dead, but I thought the 8 things were playing until I saw the one being beaten fall to the ground, and the third one crouch down and start strangling it. I went back inside my house to a room and fell asleep. I woke up in my real room feeling strange, not quite normal, but I thought it was over. I was actually about to get to the computer to talk about it in this thread. Then I realized that the space over my bed where, in real life, a flag hangs, was just a generic rectangle of fabric, and that was all it took to know I was still dreaming, though by that point I was mentally debating myself whether it was actually a dream. I kept trying to analyze previous events for inconsistencies and jump points, but it all seemed to flow. I kept struggling to wake up, which actually caused physical pain. I went outside because I couldn't think of anything else to do. It was very dark outside. Once I stepped outside the house, I couldn't find it again. The entire world was generated like Minecraft, with grass and dirt cubes forming the landscape, though it was almost perfectly flat. There were lines of minecart rails everywhere, and small tunnels made of netherrack that were completely pitch black inside. Every once in a while, a minecart would glide by carrying someone I recognized, standing up perfectly straight and staring directly forward. When they'd enter one of the tunnels, sometimes they would come out on the other side, sometimes not. Some rails were just short segments on the ground. Eventually, I just started running, and I felt like I was running for my life. This started before I turned and realized what I was running from. A large, green, translucent mass coming towards me very quickly. As it got closer, more and more of the landscape started to fall away, and I could see lava rising from the ground. Eventually, the landscape had deteriorated to such a point where I fell into an opening in the ground. The inside of the hole was surrounded by lava, as if I had fallen through into the mantle. The green mass matched my speed and came alongside me as I fell. I could see it had the face of an old woman, and it said in a quiet and deep voice, not matching the face, "Do you know why I'm here for you?" I landed on my feet on a platform, and the lava closed the opening above, so it was only me on the platform surrounded by lava and this green thing. We stared at each other for a bit, and I started to feel extremely anxious, then woke up. I looked over at the clock, which said 1:30 p.m. I had laid down for a nap at 12:30. This all happened over the course of an hour. I have no idea what any of it means, if it means anything at all, but it still feels extremely strange, and I still keep checking to make sure I'm awake. That was the very first dream I ever recorded, mainly because of how significant it felt at the time, and I'm not going to stop and give commentary after all of these. However, I do think it's just really interesting how, after years of never really having anything like that I could remember, this just sort of came out of nowhere and left such a big impression. Also, I think it's worth noting, I do have a memory at some point of making a small edit to this, and I'm not really sure why. I don't know if I did it years later or if I did it, like, immediately after I wrote it down, but towards the end, I started to feel extremely anxious. I'm pretty sure what I had originally written was confident, not anxious, actually ending on more of a positive note. And not only is that really strange in the context of the dream itself, which I now realize seems to have strange continuity with the beginning, but why would I change it to something more negative after the fact? That's really strange to me. It started with me and two other guys standing in a dark concrete room. There were pipes all over, and a small hatch on the ground. One was holding a video camera, and the other a flashlight. I pried open the hatch, which I could now see led to a dark, cramped tube with a ladder inside. The guy with the light tossed a rock in to see how deep it was, and we didn't hear it hit the bottom. He told me that it must be pretty deep, and that this would be a good video. I got the feeling that we were doing this for Halloween or something. Anyway, I took a radio from the camera guy and started climbing down. It was pitch black, and I was really creeped out, so I started doing this weird, rapid climbing, and I felt really disoriented until reaching the bottom. When I looked around, I saw a large, dark room. It was the lobby to some kind of old hospital, with two staircases on either side that led to a platform. The walls were all brick. I don't know why, but I feel like that's important. A sign above the platform said, -100. Somehow I was 100 floors below ground. Inexplicably, the room was bathed in moonlight, and as my eyes adjusted, I could see the silhouettes of two little girls on the platform, one on either side. I stared at them for a while and felt extremely uneasy. I started climbing back up the ladder. Every floor above it was the same as -100, only without the moonlight, leaving them almost pitch black. From then on, I saw the rooms, yes, but I mostly saw images, one for each floor. On the next one, I saw the twins from the first area, still in the same spots, but this time on morgue slabs. The one on the right had her head slightly lifted, and her eyes focused on me. I wanted out, and I started madly clawing at the ladder. I started having visions, and images of patient abuse and rioting came flying at me in rapid succession. About halfway up, my radio came on, and I heard the flashlight guy's voice. He told me he was waiting for me on a nearby floor, and that I should stop and go to him. I didn't believe it, and kept going. As I neared the top, the images changed from violence and death to all kinds of birth defects and other deformities. Finally, after several minutes of this, I reached up while climbing and hit something solid. I pushed the hatch off and climbed back into the room from the beginning. The camera and flashlight guys were standing over me asking what happened, but I was too exhausted to answer. That's when I woke up. I'm standing in a dimly lit hallway. It's nighttime, so dark outside that I can't see anything through the windows. I can barely hear a distant, high-pitched moan, like a choir. I walk down the hall and to the left, and find a table with a teddy bear and a bundle of rose stems. Scratched into the table is a message that says, "She takes, but she never gives." I turn around, and now there's a staircase where the hallway was. I go up the stairs and into one of several doorways, which takes me to a sitting room. I turn on the light and close and lock the door behind me. I sit in the room for a while. It feels slightly safer than before, but with a sense of foreboding. The moaning is steadily getting louder. After a while, there's a knock on the door. A muffled female voice says, "Let me in." The moan is deafening now. The doorknob jiggles. Whoever's on the other side starts pounding on the door, and I can hear shuffling feet on the other side. Then I woke up, and I felt anxious all day afterwards, and typing this has been really uncomfortable. This next one is really interesting to me because while the other ones have been fairly detailed so far, this is one of those things that I guess I just kind of scrawled into my phone immediately after waking up because I just didn't have the energy to get up. And it's always these I find that are the most light on details because I'm just trying to hold on to like anything. It's one sentence and simply reads, "The people that show up to abandonments and use lights to create slow-mo illusion." There's actually a note here that says, "Note from 2 years in the future. This one is only ever going to make sense to me no matter how much I try to explain it." Well, I guess I didn't do a good enough job writing it down because it doesn't make much sense to me now either. I can't believe it, but PC Building Simulator actually gave me a nightmare. I got a job email from a customer. They said they thought there was something really wrong with their OS install and asked me to check it out. I can't remember the specific wording, but they seemed really anxious and concerned. The disk was sitting on the desk next to the work computer, inside a wrinkled paper sleeve. I took it out and popped it in a fresh machine. It showed the standard Omega OS install bar. I clicked the monitor so it took up my entire field of view. When the bar got about halfway, I started to hear a faint, garbled whisper, like an audio file that had been heavily compressed. It got louder and louder as the progress bar slowed to a crawl. The monitor turned off, and the lights in the shop went out. I could see the shop reflected in the monitor, the outline of my own head close to the screen, and the silhouette of someone standing in the far corner. I tried to get up, but I couldn't leave that view. As the shape in the back of the room started moving towards me, that distorted whispering continued to get louder until it was deafening. As it arrived next to me, it leaned down so its head was next to mine. I could just barely make out some vague facial features. Narrow, off-center slits for the eyes and mouth, creased and wrinkled lips, and 2 tiny holes where the nose should be. Suddenly, the lights turned on, and the machine instantly booted to the Omega OS desktop. I woke up after that. It's interesting to note that there was a long gap previously between each of these, sometimes years at a time. And now, in 2022, is when they start becoming more and more frequent. However, the first 3 come in a really rapid spate, and are all really, really short. And some of these I truly cannot even picture slightly, and some I kinda can, but it's those things that are just so weird that the few words I managed to put into my phone just can't possibly do it justice. And it's kind of funny. This is why I think it's so interesting to keep a dream journal, is because you end up thinking of your past self, like, come on, what did you see? Alright, so number 1, multiplying mushrooms, insects, frog in glass tank on a plane. No idea what that means. Number 2, approaching church school at night, basement classroom, tall dark staircase, story about the nun who fell. Now, this one actually is fairly vivid to me. I do remember it clearly, but that's really all the details there are. I was with a group of people walking outside of my town's church, which is also a Catholic school, and we snuck in through the basement and found ourselves looking up this tall, dark staircase, and all they had to do was tell a story, some dark story relating to that staircase, and there was just such an ominous sense of dread looking up it. And finally, number 3, and strangest of all, I have no recollection of this at all. They turn the lights on every 10 hours. And that's all. And I have no idea what that means or why it was scary to me, why I considered it significant. But I think it's a nice look into how a dream is able to speak in ideas and concepts rather than visuals, even if they often are visual. I'm slowly waking up in an abandoned building. It takes a while to understand where I am. It looks like one of the central kitchens of the quads, and late in the day, I'm lying in a linen cart. I can feel my phone buzzing, but I can't find it. There are faint voices all over. I finally manage to find my phone and slide a finger over the screen. I can see many missed calls, and it's buzzing right now, but I can't find the energy to interact with it. The voices around me are getting louder. Finally, a person appears from around a corner, spots me, and asks why I haven't been answering my phone, and is understanding when she sees I've been sleeping. I recognize her as a member of my group, and realize the voices are everyone else looking for me. We regroup and decide to continue exploring. I dress myself with clothes from the linen cart, confused as to what happened to mine. The clothes in the cart are covered in dust, and I'm disgusted to find a large millipede inside. We decide to keep exploring, even though I really feel we should get going. It's getting darker, and I'm annoyed that I don't have my tripod for my camera. We explore for a time, and the building has a number of interesting areas. The group is larger than I'm used to, and I'm somewhat concerned about that, but we're having fun. Eventually, it's completely dark outside. We're in a cafeteria-like area, a medium-sized room with a lot of connected hallway entrances, and a raised floor in one half of the room with a short ramp leading up to it. The room is decently well lit by a few warm-colored electric lanterns, leaving some dark corners, especially the entrances to hallways, but overall a cozy, well-lit little base. It's completely black outside the broken windows. Eventually, I want to try to take a picture down a hallway. It's pretty dark, and I have to fiddle with the settings to try and get a decent exposure. Eventually, a member of the group tries to open a door in the hallway, which annoys me because she's in the shot, but I keep trying anyway because I just want to get the exposure right. Eventually, I realize the image is lit, even though I haven't changed anything. I look up from the screen, and she's still trying to open the door. I realize that when she touches the doorknob, there's a low rumble, and the light above it turns on, as well as a second light further down the hall. I realize that, for some reason, touching this door turns on the power. Suddenly, there are flashing white lights and a sporadic, piercing whistle. There are lights on all over, and it seems the fire alarm is going off. The sound is deafening, and we decide to leave. We all crowd into a narrow staircase. There's an arched, sloped ceiling above us, and we're all stomping down as fast as we can without tripping. I can hear the intercom turn on, and a voice starts speaking over it, though incomprehensible over the electric crackle and all the other noise. It sounded like a pre-recorded message meant to be played in case of fires. I realized that even though the staircase was fairly short when we entered, I now can't even see the bottom, extending a very long way down. I think to take out my camera and try to record us running, as I realize how crazy this is. As I press myself against the side to film the rest running past me, I pay closer attention to the voice on the intercom. Though the lines are delivered in the cadence of fire instructions, the words seem like they're spoken by someone trying to find someone else, though I can't remember what exactly was said. Abruptly, we reach the bottom. We're in a smaller basement room, similar to the one I first woke up in, but completely underground. There's an open casket on a table against the back wall, with a body inside I can't make out. I can only see the feet, wearing shiny black shoes. My eyes follow the body up the legs, but the dream ends before I get to the face. I was spending the night with a friend in the back office of a church. We were listening to the priest's audio tapes, which included conversations with one particular person. Eventually, one of the tapes was the priest performing last rites at their execution. Oddly enough, some entries were that person addressing the listener. After my friend went to bed and the lights were out, I kept listening to tapes. The person's direct addresses were getting weirder and more ominous, and the voice was getting clearer? Like less audio noise and distortion. Finally, it loudly, unmistakably, scarily addressed me. In the dark, I could see that my friend had been woken up and was shocked. There was strange movement in the dark outside the blinds to my left. I'm walking down the hallway of my old high school. As I near the bottom of a staircase, one student pushes another down the last step, causing him to stumble. The one who was pushed, as well as several passers-by in the crowded hallway, are angry. They all turn to a TV screen mounted on the opposite wall. Everyone in the hall has stopped walking and turned to face the screen. They start slowly chanting something. The lights in the hallway dim until the only light is from the glow of the blank screen. They stop chanting and just wait. For a long time, nothing happens, but as I'm about to leave, I notice a faint image on the screen. Over a period of several minutes, an image fades in, showing what looks to be two young boys looking towards the screen, but not directly into the camera. It looks like very old black and white footage, where only the basic details can be made out. Their expression is flat, and they look malnourished, but it's hard to read them exactly because the quality is so poor. It's not a still image. They're moving slightly, as if idly standing, but it seems to be dropping frames at irregular intervals. I looked to the one who had pushed the kid. He looked absolutely terrified, in that I'm being punished way. It was like he already knew what this was, and it was somehow very bad for him. Here's a couple more short and sweet ones. Visiting family friend at an old house. There's a second house on the property that is said to be haunted. I go over there and spend some time ghost hunting. I follow activity throughout the house, which finally leads me to a back room. I become confused by the layout and get lost for a long time. When I finally come back out, everyone is decades older. Here's another one that is just pure kaleidoscope nonsense. Decide to prank the world with a firecracker that will turn off the daylight. Spend the whole ride home anticipating it. Finally get there, run up to upstairs bathroom, and fire the firecracker out the upstairs window. It works, and the night outside is dark and windy. I look around in anticipation, now with a sense of dread. A giant, grinning, desaturated watercolor man appears and reaches toward the window. I'll be honest, I didn't remember that one at all, but I can sort of picture it when I read it back to myself. That's why I do this. That's why I write these down. Meeting with 2 friends from an urbex forum, we've gotten a call from another friend who has managed to get himself locked inside an abandoned house. We're driving through the suburbs, and though it's daytime, it's fairly dark because of the rain and cloudy skies. We're talking about it in a humorous tone as we drive, sort of like a "how'd he manage this?" We pull up in front of the house, and it's rather large. The dark brown wooden shingles make it seem old, but otherwise it's in good shape. It's several stories tall, with many large, intact windows. We decide to make it quick in case nosy neighbors can see us enter and call the police. We walk up the stairs to the front door, and one friend tries the knob, and is surprised when it just opens. We all step inside and close it behind us. The interior is spacious and modern-looking, as well as fully furnished. The atmosphere is cold but cozy, as rainy Friday evenings tend to be. We begin to worry that the house isn't actually abandoned at all. We begin calling out for our friend, but we aren't getting any reply. Suddenly, a small toddler walks around the corner, about 2 or 3 years old. He's smiling and doesn't seem bothered by our presence. What's somewhat worrying to us, however, is that he seems to be the only one home in what's allegedly an abandoned house. Myself and one other begin searching the house for our friend, while the third stays by the entrance with the child. I head upstairs and begin looking around. It sounds very faintly like a TV is on somewhere, but there are many rooms, and it always seems to be coming from somewhere else. I finally walk into a bedroom and see what I at first think is the other searching friend draping a sheet from the bed over himself. My first thought is that he's trying to scare the one we're looking for when we find him. I walk into the room and try to pull it off of him, because at this point I'm not sure the place is really abandoned at all, and this is all very risky. He fights to keep it on, and groans loudly. I keep fighting harder to the point where I'm practically on top of him and trying to wrestle him to the floor, with them grunting loudly and wordlessly the entire time. I'm able to yank part of the sheet and see that the person beneath is shirtless, though I still can't see their face. They're muscular but very thin. I let go, realizing it's none of my friends, and they just stand up, fix the sheet, and walk out of the room. We continue our search, and I pass by my other friends several times, but I don't mention the sheet ghost because, for some reason, I feel that they won't believe me. It fills me with a sense of dread knowing they're somewhere in the house, but that I can't tell the others. As I search, I sometimes see the sheet ghost standing in a room, usually facing away from me, but I don't try to engage again. I honestly can't remember if they ended up finding the friend who was supposed to be trapped inside. All I remember is that I eventually found myself in a room with the sheet ghost, and the others were at the top of the stairs just outside the door. I took this opportunity to try and take the sheet again, once more finding it a very difficult fight, with the ghost struggling furiously and making loud grunts and groans. I managed to wrestle them to the floor again, and my other friends began to pull at the sheets as well. The toddler was standing behind them, and as usual seemed unbothered by all of this. As I sat on the ghost's back, my friends pulled at the part covering their head. They managed to pry it loose, and one of them had a look of actual horror, though I still wasn't at an angle to see for myself. I got off and we all ran out of the house and back to the car. It was night now, though the lighting inside the house hadn't changed, and we quickly got in the car to leave. I looked back toward the house as I sat down and we pulled away, and my eye was drawn to one of the upstairs windows. There was a reflection on the glass, which shifted quickly as we started moving. I remember thinking that the movement reminded me of an eye, quickly glancing. As we drove, one of my friends said that the person under the sheet had the face of their dad, but decades younger. Reading these all back in order like this is really something. I don't know, because it's so nonsensical a lot of the time, and what I'm realizing a common trend is that it's a lot of things that are very unspecifically scary. Like, if you were to just put them in, say, a horror movie with no context, they just seem weird rather than, like, actually horrifying. And I want to know, like, are these things scary and, like, producing a sense of dread in you as well? Because I'm really uncomfortable reading some of these back right now. I keep turning around and looking back into my dark room like somebody's staring at me. But maybe it's just because I'm recalling the feelings that I had in those moments. I don't know, there's probably a lot you could read into this, just in terms of, like, how our thought processes work in these states. But since I'm bothering to give an outro to what is essentially a reading, if you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for more creepy and comfy content. If you have any ideas for other videos you think I should do, the best place to suggest that will be at the Discord, which I will link in the description. If you want to support me on Patreon, that link will be in the description. And as always, I will see you in the next one.